Toyota, one of the biggest names in the car world, period. But let's be honest, they've been seen as kind of dragging their feet in the EV race. Well, that might be about to change. They've just made a massive move that could completely shake things up. So, let's get into it.
For a while now, it's really felt like Toyota was falling behind, right? But now they've pulled a pretty bold move out of their hat. So the big question on everyone's mind is this. Is this the moment the sleeping giant finally wakes up and joins the EV party for real? Okay, so before we dive into their big new solution, we have to understand the problem they were trying to solve. And, it was a serious one. We're talking about their EV sales just cratering.
Yeah, this was the core of it. Sales were just plummeting. In huge markets like Japan and the US, Toyota's electric cars just weren't moving off the lots. And you can bet that set off all kinds of alarm bells inside the company. It created the super urgent need to do something and do it fast.
And that brings us to their response. And look, Toyota didn't just, tweak a few things here and there. Nope, they went for a major overhaul of their flagship electric SUV.
So, say hello to the new and improved bZ4X. This thing is Toyota's direct answer to all the critics and, of course, to those terrible sales numbers. They've re-engineered this thing from the ground up, basically, hoping it's going to be their big comeback story. So, what exactly did they fix?
Let's start with the big one, the headline number, range. The new bZ4X in Japan now gets an incredible 746 kilometers. Now, that's on the Japanese WLTC test cycle, but still, it's a massive 25% increase. That's a huge leap forward in kicking that range anxiety to the curb.
And what about charging? The other big pain point for EV owners. Well, check this out. It now takes just 28 minutes to go from 10% to 80% battery. For anyone who's ever taken an EV on a road trip, that is an absolute game changer. So how'd they pull that off? Well, the updated model now supports 150 kilowatt fast charging. This is the key piece of tech right here. It's what makes that super fast 28-minute charge possible, and it brings the bZ4X right in line with some of its toughest competitors.
So when you add all these improvements up, you get a really significant achievement. This car is now, officially, the longest-range electric vehicle made by a domestic automaker in Japan. And you better believe that's a title that gives Toyota some serious bragging rights on its home turf.
But hey, Toyota is a global company, right? So this isn't just a story about Japan. The strategy and even the car itself actually changes depending on where you are in the world.
This table lays it all out pretty clearly. So first, notice the different range numbers. 746 kilometers in Japan, 573 in Europe, and 314 miles in the US. That's just because they all use different testing standards. The US EPA test is usually the toughest. Oh, and in the States, it's just called the bZ. And this is huge, it comes with a NACS port. That means it can plug right into Tesla's supercharger network, which is a massive deal for American buyers.
So, okay, the specs are looking pretty good. But a car doesn't exist in a bubble. To really figure out if this is going to be enough, we need to zoom out and look at the competition.
And here's where we get a little dose of reality. Like this quote points out, beating out your domestic rivals, Honda, Nissan, Mazda, to have the longest range EV in Japan, that's one thing. But the global stage, that is a completely different and much tougher ballgame.
And the big takeaway here is that the real threat isn't coming from down the street in Japan. It's coming from these super aggressive global players like BYD out of China. These companies are expanding like wildfire into regions that Toyota has dominated for decades. This is the real test for the new bZ4X.
It's also really important to remember that this EV is just one piece of Toyota's much bigger puzzle. They're famous for what they call their multi-pathway approach. They're basically betting that the future isn't just one single technology. So alongside pure EVs like the bZ4X, they're still pouring tons of money into hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and even hydrogen fuel cells. They argue that different markets and different customers need different solutions. So, where does all this leave us? Let's try to pull all these threads together and see if we can come up with some kind of final verdict on Toyota's big play here.
It really all boils down to this fundamental tension. On the one hand, you have the updated bZ4X, which is without a doubt a huge step forward. The range, the charging speed, these are massive improvements that fix the car's biggest flaws. But on the other hand, the global competition has never, ever been this fierce.
And that brings us right back to where we started, but with a whole lot more context.
Toyota has definitely stepped up, there's no question about that, but will it be enough to keep pace, let alone retake the lead in an industry that's changing faster than ever before? I guess we're all about to find out as these new cars hit the road.